I'm making a video on making a leg vise. So I've seen a few other designs on YouTube and some other places, and I thought it was a pretty handy little machine to have. So I decided I'd like to build one. Well, actually, coincidentally, not long after I started researching and looking at this, a good friend of mine who didn't even know I was looking to do this said, "Hey, I happen to have one of these lead screws around. Would you like it?" He said it's actually from his grandpa's old bench. And based on my friend's age and his grandpa, who's no longer alive, it's got to be 100+ years old. So it's a very beefy piece of hardware. So I appreciate the offer. So now all I got to do is live up to the hype, because the guy who gave this to me is a much more well-seasoned craftsman than I'll ever be. So hopefully I can at least make this thing work and it doesn't fall on his face. So we'll go through it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll try to shorten it, but I also don't like to cheat you and leave stuff out. So I try to keep as much in as I can. So feel free to skim through as you go, because it's going to be a fairly long video. So we'll see how everything goes. Okay, so I'm going to go through just a quick SketchUp of how I'm going to build this leg vise. So if you've seen any of my other YouTube videos, you'll probably see a similar theme. I usually sketch this up. Just some rough dimensions at the beginning, so I know what I need for material, and then I can kind of make sure I'm not going to miss something, because I do have some challenges in the construction of my bench. It's not a typical bench. I just kind of designed it myself a long time ago. So it takes a little bit of modification to my bench to make this thing work right. So just some real high level dimensions. So basically I've got, this is kind of just the front view of showing the chop mounted on the leg side of the end of the bench. This is the side view showing, here's the chop, and here's my bench, and here's I guess we'll call it the guide board, because I'm not sure what exactly the name of that is. There's the lead screw going through. So here's the chop itself with some dimensions. So my rough dimensions, I'm thinking it's going to be about 6.5 inches wide. The length of it's going to be about 34 inches. You see a big question mark in here. The reason that's a question mark is because I don't know how I'm going to design part of this. I'm going to put some sort of roller bearings. Maybe it'll be, I've seen other people use roller skate wheels for guides on this. But basically what I want to do is I want this to guide this board in, so that, because this is what keeps it parallel when you're operating your vise, because this thing's going to want to rock this way or that way. So when you put the pressure on this vise, you want to keep it parallel. So that's what this board is for. And there's a bunch of holes, it looks like Swiss cheese, through here that you use. You have to put, you can usually use a screwdriver or some pin. So you get it set to about the thickness that you're going to have up here. You put your pin in there, and that keeps it parallel. But anyway, so my challenge is, and I don't know what I'm going to use for those bearings or rollers, whatever I use. So this height of this will probably vary depending on what I decide on. So over here, just a quick, this is just the lead screw. Basically the lead screw, the actual threaded length is about 15 inches. The overall length is 18 inches. So I'm gonna have my chop back here. So that'll determine how much actual travel I can get in and out of this thing. So I think it's gonna work, but again, I have some challenges, and I'm gonna run through some of that with you on my bench. So I want to show you where some of my challenges lay. So this is my bench, and the way I designed it, unfortunately, I don't have a leg that runs from the corner down, which would typically be used to support your leg vise. So I'm going to have to add some modifications in here to get this to work. So this is not what I'm using, but I just had this piece around. I kind of cut it just to kind of play around. So basically I'm going to have to add in this plate from the top to the bottom, and I'm going to definitely have to put supports that'll run from the back here. So I've got 2x6s that are running all the way from the top to the bottom. So there's a gap between here. Actually, it kind of works out kind of nice, because the lead screw can easily run through there without needing to modify any of the wood back there. So I'll have to support it with here. So I'll basically put in basically runners across both sides of it. The bottom of it is a little bit of a challenge, because I got a 4x4 on the ground, that's actually cut at a bevel. So I'm gonna have to that guide board's gonna run. That's gonna run in and out through here. Of course we'll have to staple this. So and then I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm gonna put those bearings at and how I'm gonna mount those. Either on here. Well, there's gonna be one on here, and then I'll have to have one above so that we can keep this in parallel. So anyway, that's just kind of a quick view. I'm planning on using, like I said, the width of it will be 6.5, which is actually the distance between these legs. So that kind of works out pretty well with the math. And we'll see how it works. So this is basically I just cut this, kind of rough cut this to length, and I'm gonna trim off, add a little bit. It's a bad end down here, so I cut a little long. I'll just trim this bottom off. So I'm gonna get everything squared up. So this will be the board that I'm going to use for basically my main support on the front of the bench. So I'm going to rip this down to basically 6.5. So I'm going to use my extension table, which if you see my other YouTube videos, you can see how I made this. Just kind of slick. As most projects go, this never kind of works as it does on paper. So now I got this cut. Just a minor problem, but basically because this leg was also supposed to be set back basically an inch and a quarter, or inch and a half from here to here, but it's not quite. So I have two choices. So the problem is if I have this in here. If I squared him up, it's not square, so there's a gap in here. So this bottom needs to move in. So I have a couple choices. I can either try to cut this leg back, or I can notch out the bottom. Cutting this leg back I really don't want to do that, because I'd have to actually get him off the floor, and I'm not taking all the stuff off my bench to do that. So I'm just going to notch out the bottom here. So I'm worked off where I'm going to notch this board. So I'm just going to. So basically, I have to cut it a little bit higher because that is at an angle. So I'm probably going to come up another, I don't know, we'll say ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch. Not that critical, as long as I get enough notch out that I can make it. It's not. The supports will be by the 2x4s anyway. So I finished, I notched the bottom out so I can slide this in. So I've got these guys on both sides as the spacers for front. So basically now when I measure, I can pretty much, at least to my floor, I'm pretty parallel. Alright, so I'm going to cut the pieces for the chop. So I've got a piece of 4/4 oak, quarter sawn oak. I'll be cutting it in, it's about 98 inches long, just a little over 7 inches wide. So I'm going to just kind of do some rough cuts on this. So basically I'm going to take three passes on this, or 3 pieces of this oak. And it's good. The length that I need for my chop is going to be about 31 3/4. I'm going to cut these about 32.5 because what I'm going to be taking these and gluing them up. And then after I glue them up, I'll trim them down and clean them up to the right size. So I got my boards cut to length, and I'm about to glue them up. After I started setting these up, I noticed there's quite a bow on a couple of these boards. So I'm a little concerned about gluing it and clamping it, for the fact that it's I want to make sure that these things don't delaminate themselves, because it's going to want to pull itself apart. So I'm actually going to use my my large vise that I built, and actually it's in another YouTube video if you want to watch it. Actually, it's coming in very handy. I've used it for several things. It's very big and wide, so it'll actually fit this really well. So I'll show you that in a minute. But basically, so I'll be able to set that in the vise, and I'll be able to clamp it down. That'll get the bottom nice and tight. Then I can put my smaller clamps on the top. Make sure I have these things clamped well. So we'll give that a try and see how she works. All right, let's glue this boy up. Alright, so basically I've got my vise just set up here. So I got just a 2x4 in for support. I had a 4x4 with the right length. So I got this is my bench vise that I built a while back. So basically I can pull this guy out as almost another, I can go another probably 8-10 inches. So it's kind of convenient. So basically I'm just going to use these to clamp it in, and hopefully we can get these all together. Just going to lay this guy in. Space them out and get them fairly even. They don't have to be perfect because I'm going to trim all these down anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I'd like them to be close. Just clamp these guys in, and this clamp, this vise will be tight enough you could keep John Wayne's hat on his head. So. Everything should be dried up. I let her set basically overnight, so should be good to go. I'm going to take off all the clamps. So I'm getting ready to basically joint off the end. So right now at about 7 1/4 inches wide. like I said, I need to be at about 6.5. So I'll take down one side, and then I'll just run it through my table saw to cut it to the 6.5 inch width. So here goes. So I'm gonna rip this guy basically the same width as here. So I'm just gonna use this as my guide to set my fence. So basically set them up square, touch them in. Should be good to go. I'm going to square this guy up. So typically I would do this with my miter saw, but because of the thickness of this and the size, I can't do the full cut in one cut. So I'm going to do it on just on my sled. I only have a 10-inch miter. If I had a 12-inch, it'd be perfect. But anyway, so because this thing's so heavy, I got it hanging on the edge of here. So of course it wants the cantilever off. So I just put a piece of basically the same thickness plywood, which is 1/2-inch plywood, on the end here to support this so I can do it. So I just put some clamps to hold it in place so it doesn't move on me. So I'm just going to square off this end, and then I'll cut it to length. I'll cut off this end. I'll call this the bad end. It's got some problems, some knots and things down here, which, as you can see, there's actually a crack along here, which won't be a problem because this is going to be the bottom of my chop. So this thing will actually be narrowed down. So that'll get cut away anyway because it'll be shaped kind of like this, and then it kind of comes back up. So. So 31 3/4. So I'm laying out the chop, and I put this on paper and I did it in color so that you can kind of see this. It's got pretty much all the critical dimensions that I'm going to have to make in this chop. So when I was doing this, I was kind of looking for some information about exactly where to put the hole at for the actual screw, where to taper it down. You know, how narrow can I taper it to. So while I was looking, I actually went online and I found that this company called Benchcrafted makes a kit for a Leg Vise, and they've got a PDF in it, and the PDF has some really good instructions on how to build kind of what I'm doing right now. It's not exactly what I'll be doing, but it has some good guidelines, and it's got some good information in it. So I would highly suggest, if you're going to be doing this Leg Vise, go ahead and search for that online. You can Google it, Benchcrafted Glide Original Leg Vise, and you'll find this assembly instruction. So it's got some good stuff in it. So back to mine. So the way I laid it out is, so I've changed my dimensions slightly from my original plan. So the hole for the actual screw, I'm going to put it from the top 9 inches down. The diameter of this hole that I'm going to cut is going to be about, well, not about, it's going to be 1 1/8. That's to accommodate this screw. So the screw is 0.95 inches. So I want the screw to go through, but you don't want it to be too tight, because if it's too tight, you're going to have issues. You don't want the screw hitting on there. So you can actually have this be kind of sloppy in there, because this is going to get mounted with this flange on the front. So the flange is going to hold the screw in place, and it shouldn't hit on the edge. So it can be a little bit sloppy. You don't want it too big, because on the flange you're going to put some screws through. to hold this piece in, and you don't want those to be close to that where the screws are. So the interesting thing about this flange also, and I know it's difficult to see, and I don't know if you can make it out on here, but basically this flange has a convex section of it that's kind of the minor diameter of this. So I'm gonna, and this diameter is about 2 1/8 inch in diameter. So what I'm gonna do when I drill this, I'm actually gonna do 2 holes. First I'll do the 2 1/8 inch hole. I'll use my Forstner bit. I'll only go about a quarter inch deep, and then I'll drill the hole all the way through, which is 1 1/8 inch. So that'll allow me to set this flange in. It'll sit flush onto my chop. I'll also have to drill the 2 holes because on this flange there's a couple bolt holes in here, so that's how it's going to hold on to the chop. So I'll drill those out. And so my plan is, again, I didn't really know how to make this bottom part, which is go down to your parallel guide. So I've just kind of looked at what everybody else is kind of doing and kind of looked at what I thought was sufficient. So I mean, the only real reason for doing this, where you're basically going to taper it down, is because you got a lot of beef in this guy. It just kind of lightens it up. I mean, I guess you could, in theory, you could just leave the whole thing be one long, wide leg, but it makes it really heavy. Plus, it kind of gives it a little bit more look, I guess, more dimension. So my plan is coming down from the top. I'm going to come down about 11 inches, and from there I'll come in, and I was going to basically, I'm coming in at 45. I'm going down 1.5 inches, and then I'll just take it straight down from there on both sides. So that leaves me with a chop of about 3.5 inches wide. So I figure that should be beefy enough. It has, I mean, it's going to have to support the force of this clamping device with the parallel guide. It's 2.5 inches thick. I think 2.5 by 3.5 is quite a bit of beef. I don't see that being a problem. So that's kind of the layout of my chop. I got one issue is I do not have a bandsaw, so I'm going to have to cut this in kind of some separate cuts. I plan on making the major long cuts. I'll just put that on my table saw, and then I'm either going to have to hand cut this, or I do have a jigsaw, but unfortunately the jigsaw has a maximum height of about 2.5 inches, which this is, and I don't know if it's going to work. I've never tried to cut anything like that on a jigsaw. It's going to be a little awkward because this is a pretty big piece to be putting on a small jigsaw. So I might cut it by hand. I might use the jigsaw. I'll have to play around with that. So that's the kind of layout. So hopefully that's helpful. So I'm going to drill the 2 1/8 inch hole. Like I said, I'm going to go about a quarter inch deep. Doesn't have to be critical, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, so I actually drilled the 2 1/8 inch about 4/10 of an inch deep. I realized that flange was a little deeper than I thought. So anyway, I got it set up now. I got 1 1/8 inch bit on here. So I'm going to drill this all the way through. It looks like the bit's just barely going to make it to get through this. I've got another board on the bottom supported try to minimize the blowout. So here we go. So I'm going to rip down the tapered end of the leg vise. So I've got my saw already set up to cut the first side. So I'll cut this one down. I got it set up so I'm cutting about 1.5 inches off of each side of this. So what I had to do, I actually I set a stop on the back on my outfeed table, because when I push this through, of course, because if I had a square blade, maybe it'd work. But anyway, so I've got to come through, and I can't go too far because on the bottom side the blade's going to be further right. So I don't want to stop. I don't want to cut into the bottom side. So I've got the stop, so I'll cut just short on the bottom. Then I'll have to cut the rest of this out by hand. So first I cut this side, and I'll do the other side. So what I decided to do for this is to cut this angle. I've just set up my saw, so I've got everything all set up already. So I've got my miter gauge back here I got a sacrificial fence put onto it, so it's gonna cut at a 45. I got it set for about 1.5 inches, so it should be just right. So I'll do one side, and I have to flip it over to the other. So I just clamp this side down just to kind of keep this guy and keep him stable. So as a So I finished cutting the bevel line on the table saw. It worked out pretty well actually. This is the one side, so it actually met up perfectly. So now all I got to do is I got to cut out this section of it where I couldn't reach it with the table saw. So I'm actually going to use, well, this is my bench vise again. This is one there's a YouTube video on if you want to watch it. Go ahead. I'm going to use this again. So I'm going to clamp this in here, and I'm going to just use my jigsaw to cut those last pieces out. So just orient it in here. So I'm going to put a bevel on the front of this. So I got it at about a 45, and I'm just going to run this through and just put a little bit of bevel on the front of the. So I'm getting ready to basically cut my parallel guide. So I'm going to chew this guy up. So the parallel guide will sit. So basically, once I get this cut, I cut it at 20 inches. I'm going to be trimming it down to, I think the finished length will be about 17, but I left it a little long. So I'm going to cut it. I'll chew it up. Then I'm going to I'll cut a tenon or a stub on the front of it. Then I'll mortise this guy out, so this guy will actually sit in here, and then I'll have to drill all the Swiss cheese into it, which will be fun. So we'll chew it up, and we'll do the stub next. So I'm going to mortise out the end here. So I've got it all marked out. I'm going to have it's about 2 1/8 inches long in the mortise and 5/8 inches wide. So I've got a 5/8 inch mortar or a Forstner bit set in here. So I've got to just set this guide up just to run it along. So basically I'm just going to start, and I'll hog out and get rid of the most material, and then I'll take my chisel and square it up. So I'm about to cut, I'm just basically going to score both sides of, this is the guide. So I've got it, for my mortise, it's about an inch, just under an inch and a half. So about, I got it set, I'm going to cut about an inch and 7/16 depth. So I'm going to score both sides of this, and then I'm going to take it and put it on my joiner and then cut, and then basically bring it down to the right width, and I'll just kind of sneak it in until I get a good honeymoon fit. So I just... Okay, so I've basically got my joiner set up. I've set this to cut just under an 1/8 and 7/16 since I already have the score, so I got about an 1/8 inch just from the blade. For the stop, basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take it, I'm going to just cut this side off. I'll just run it through and do a bunch of passes. I got the depth set just about perfect on my saw, so I'll cut that off. And actually, what I'll probably do, instead of trying to square out the ends of that, I think I'll just round over the corners with my sander until I get it to fit right. So it might be a little easier than doing a lot of chiseling. So I'm going to basically just chisel this out. I was originally thinking of rounding over the actual parallel guide, but I don't think that'll work. So I'm just going to chisel this out, square it up, and we'll go from there. All right, so I've got this mortise done. You might have noticed that I made a little slip and cut my finger, but oh well, real minor. Anyway, so it seems to be a pretty good fit. It sits down there pretty flush. And if I checked it with my square, because that's kind of critical, this thing has to sit square because it is your parallel guide. So it's pretty good. So I might have to kind of just tweak it a little bit when I pin it in. So basically, I'm planning on bolting it in versus using any sort of pegs. I don't really have any right size pegs. So I'm just going to put some bolts through here and I'll countersink them and set them in. So I'm going to drill out, basically going to countersink, or actually I guess more counterbore, both of the holes that are going to go through the parallel guide. So my plan is I'm going to use these bolts. I'll countersink it here so it's set below the surface, and then I'm also going to countersink on the other side so that I can, and I want to countersink it big enough that I can actually get a socket on it. So I'm going to have to get that over top so I can tighten them up. So I've got a 7/8 inch Forstner bit on here, so that'll be big enough for this to get in. So I'll countersink it and I'll drill it all the way through with a 3/8 inch bit. And after I get this done, I'll get the parallel guide installed. I'll make sure it's perfectly parallel, and then I'll drill those holes through, bolt it in, and that should basically do that. Okay, so actually, before I was going to drill the other side, I'm going to have to drill all the way through so I can get the right location. Alright, so I'll countersink the other side. Okay, I've got it clamped up, so I got this thing squared as good as I can to the chop. So I want to, it's pretty critical that to be squared up. So I've got it squared in. So I'm just going to drill through and put those holes in, and hopefully everything just comes out nice. So I just stopped the video quick because I drove this one through just to make sure it's in. It's perfectly square right now, so before I disturb it again, I just want to drill this guy out. Okay, it's time to cut some Swiss cheese. So basically, I just made a little quick template up to drill these holes. So basically, they're 15 16 inches between each hole. So I basically just have one in the center, and then I just offset it to about ½ inch from each side. So I drew a big grid on here. So I have this guide. So I'll drill a hole. I'll move it down basically 3 increments of 5/16, which is actually the distance between this hole and this hole that way. So we'll give it a shot. Alright, so I'm just basically going to countersink these just a little bit to kind of take some of the edge off, because it kind of blew through, so it just makes it easier to get the pin in when it Alright, so this is going to be on the back side of the leg. So this is where the hole for the screw is going to go through on the leg side. So this is 1 1/8, so it's the same as I drilled into the leg vise itself. So I'll just drill that through. So I'm going to cut out the hole in the back side of the back leg that the parallel guide will go through. So this one's going to be a little bit sloppier. You don't want the thing to actually hit it. And plus I'm going to have I've got some roller skates that I'm going to use with some bearings that'll support this. So it shouldn't actually hit the inside of this guide, or the guide shouldn't hit it. So we'll just cut it out. I'm using a 1-inch Forstner bit that gives me pretty good clearance all the way around it. So okay, so I've got it set up to. I'm basically gonna mount the screw onto the chop. So what I did is I took this. I took my chop. This 2x8 in the back is basically the board that's going to be on the back side of my bench. It runs from the floor up to the top of my bench or the bottom side of my bench. So I've laid it in place. I just got everything squared how I want it. So I got the chop down here, which is kind of hard to see, but the chop is actually installed. You have to make sure you have the right clearance in there because you can't have the chop hitting where the hole that I mortised through or cut through the 2x8. Plus the screw has to clear and you can't have any interference. So the nice thing about this screw is because it has this kind of dome on it and then I've got this center or this counter bore in here. So when I drop him down, he'll basically pretty much self-center himself. So when I put him in here, he's pretty much centered. So I've got a couple lines drawn across here, so I'm going to drill a couple holes. I'll screw him through. And then on the bottom side, this will go on that back side of the 2x8. So this is basically where the screw threads through. So I just got to get him mounted. And again, you have to have him, you want him to be, the screw to be parallel. So when you mount this in, it's pretty critical that you get that guy parallel. So we'll do that next. So I've got these, I basically drill a pilot. So I'm basically going to drill this out. So I'm using a number 8, a 2-inch number 8 deck screw, which has the Torx input on, or head on it. So I'm gonna drill this out and I'll just mount him down. Okay, I'm getting ready to basically mount basically this is what I guess you call it the nut that goes on the back of the lead screw. So this is the back side of the 2x8 that's mounted onto the bench. Well, it will be. So I got to get this thing centered on here. So this is a hole going through here and then into the chop. So I need to get this guy centered. I don't have a lot of clearance on this because I only drilled it at what, 1 1/8. So I'm just a little concerned if I don't get it perfectly centered that it's gonna bind in or the screw's gonna hit into the wood. So probably being a little bit more paranoid than I need to, but I figured what the heck, it's better to be a little cautious than not. So basically all I did, I just took this guy, I laid him out on here and I drew some circles and measured the distance between my caliper. So it's 2.15 inches is hole to hole. So from the center of the hole out, I should be at 1.075. So I just basically set my caliper at 1.075. I'll mark the hole and then I'll drill it. So I want to cut these. These are basically just cheap old roller skate wheels. So I'm going to cut. They're a little wide, so I'm going to cut them down. I'm going to cut them down just beyond, because when you press them in, there's a bearing that's going to press in. So I want it to be just barely flush or close to flush with that bearing. So I got this thing set up to cut off about 100 thousandths off each side. Well, one side. Okay, so I reset it. So basically, I cut about another 100 thousandths off the other side. Okay, so I'm getting ready to make the rest of the guides, the roller guides for the bottom of the chop. So that there'll be one on the front and one on the back side. So that's what the chop will ride along. I tried this once. I used some of the when I cut this chop down, I had some pieces left that were basically the thickness of the chop. I tried it. It almost worked, and when I was routing it out, I ended up blowing the piece of wood up. So I kind of failed miserably on that. So I'm going to do this again, except of course I don't have any of this wood of this thickness left, and I really don't want to glue it up and wait. So I'm just going to use some 3/4 inch oak, and I have some 5/8. Actually, I'll use for the base of it. It's just wood I had left over. So the base will be 3 inches by 2 3/4 wide, and then I have these two pieces that will 3/4 oak that I'll mount in on here, and that'll set. I need that tall enough so that I can set this wheel in. I'll cut this down a little bit and kind of shape it to give it a little bit kind of a nicer look to it. And then I'm going to I'll have to slot it here on the bottom so that I can adjust this up and down to ride on the guide. So this is where the wheel will actually be riding. You know, if you can envision this sitting like this, actually, the chop or the guide will be riding along there. So we'll give that a shot and see how it goes. I'm just going to cut the base pieces quick here. So I have this set up. Basically right now I have a stop set of 2 3/4. So I'll rip 2 of these and then I'll turn it and cut it down to 3 inches. So. Alright, so I set this up. Basically, I'm going to cut some 45. I'm just going to cut these out of 45. Just put my square set in here. Kind of got it locked down. And we'll just go ahead and cut all 4 of these. Okay, so I just set this up. So I've got this is the piece. I went and just kind of highlighted so you can see it. So basically I've marked the hole where I'm going to drill. So I'm going to drill a 5/16 hole, 5/16 inch hole. So I'll set this. I got this jig just set up to cut them. So I'll put this underneath it to try to minimize the blowout. So all of them should come out the same. So I just kind of laid this in here, so it's not mounted or anything yet, but just kind of show you this is the idea. So this will be on the front of the chop, and then there'll be one on the back side, the other way on the opposite end, pushing the guide down, so it'll keep the parallel guide parallel. So as you can see that I got just enough clearance so that it actually doesn't hit the bottom, and there's enough clearance on the side. You can see in there. Enough just protrusion of the wheel, and again this isn't set in, but I'll basically put the notch in here so I can adjust this guy up and down just slightly so I can fine tune him, and that should do it. Okay, so I just flipped the chop in the backboard. So this is the board that mounts. It's gonna be hard mounted onto my bench. This is the chop down below, so I get it upside down. So this is the parallel guide, and here's my roller bearing that's going to be in here. So I'll do the same thing. I'll notch this out. I'll basically in the back side of this, I'll just drill out and install some threaded inserts, just some metal threaded inserts. That way I can just screw him in and I can adjust him and fine tune him to keep the parallel guide parallel. So I'll be able to adjust him, and there'll be a one down on the bottom side that'll be able to adjust that. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to install basically the for putting the threaded inserts. So I've got this set up. This is where I marked the hole that I need to drill. So for this is a 1/4-20 metal threaded insert, and according to the back of the instructions for softwood, this is just pine. I'm supposed to drill a 29/64 hole, which I have a bit in there. So I'm just going to drill them down. I'm going to go about almost an inch deep. It doesn't really matter. So I'll do this side, and I have the same thing on the opposite side for where the other guide will be. Okay, so I'm gonna put this threaded insert in. I've done this differently before, and I guess after seeing some other guys, I guess I wasn't doing it right. But so if you look on these threaded inserts, there's different styles. So this one has a slot cut across it. Some have like a hex head in it, so you can put a hex wrench in. From what I've been told, you actually shouldn't use that to insert them. I think you use that if you want to take them out. So I guess the right way to do it is, so basically I just took a 1/4-20 bolt, I cut the head off, I put a couple nuts on it to set the depth. So I'll just thread this on this guy, and I'll just chuck them up in my drill. That way I can just kind of drive this straight down. And the problem with doing it by hand without the drill is it can be very difficult to keep it parallel. So we'll see how well I can do with this. Just drive it really slow. Okay, that seemed to work pretty well. Let's see if I got to set that move. I didn't go deep enough, so I'm going to take it down just a little bit. Yeah, that works much better. Okay, so I flipped it over. I'll do the other side. Again, you want the slot side or whatever the cutout is up, because if you want to get them out, I guess you can grab onto them like that. Start it nice and slow. Try to keep a little pressure on it and straight down. Yeah, that works good. Okay, so I'm getting ready to, I need to cut the slot in here. So this is the bottom plate, so that I can move him up and down to make some slight adjustments on where the wheel sits. So I've got my router set up. I got a 1/4-inch bit in here. I've got a couple stops in here. So I'm just going to take this really slow and just take some real shallow cuts. And I'm going to have to like plunge down onto them. So I got to be real careful here. I don't want to take my fingers off. So I'm going to plunge down into them and run them back and forth, and repeat it on both sides, on both of these. I put a piece of yellow tape on it just to make sure I do it in the same orientation every time with this side up. So once I take a few passes, I'll just start slowly bringing the bit back up a little bit until I get all the way through, and then I'll have a nice slot in here. So we will see how this works. Okay, so I did stop the router. So what I wanted to do, since I already I have this pilot hole in here, so my plan is I didn't want to keep trying to do that because it gets a little dangerous as you plunge that down. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring it down, and I've got it all. I got it now set, so I can take enough off. So I've got it set so it's in that pilot hole. It's going to cut all the way through. So I'm just going to start into that, and that way I don't have to worry about this thing kind of catching when I'm pushing down or pulling up on it. Okay, I'm just going to drill a bunch of the holes through. This is, I gotta, basically I'll have to screw him onto here. So I'm gonna drill 3 holes on each. I got an 1.25 inch screw, and I'm going to countersink them so I can get enough thread on him to really bite into the top. I'm going to drill these out and then just keep screwing them in. I've got these all labeled and numbered, so I know who's who. Because now that I'm going to drill it, I don't want to mess these up because they're all going to have to be just right. Okay, so I got the wheel mounted in here. So basically, I just got a 1/4 inch bolt running through here. I can't tighten this too much, of course, because it's going to collapse this. But it's just an axle, so it just has to be, so it doesn't come off. So that seems to work. So I've got the slot in here. So basically, all I need to do is put this on here. So this is where I put the threaded insert. So I'll just put it through this slot. So then again I can adjust this guy up and down. So basically just drop them in there. And right now I'll just set it because I'll have to tweak this to get it right when I get the basically this guy's installed, the parallel guide. So just kind of let them in there loose. And then I've already put the other one on this side. So this one's already up and ready to go. So I did kind of dry fit this before. I had a small issue with when it was riding along here. The chop was sticking out probably about a 32nd beyond the guide, and it was enough to, when I tried to pull it in, it would bind. So I sanded that down to try to make it perfectly squared up with the chop. So this seems to be a pretty good fit now. So I'll just assemble it all together on my bench, and we'll see if it works. So I've got it here all set up. So basically I mounted the backboard on here, which has got we got the bearings on there, the wheels on both the front and the back. So I've got this all screwed on, and so it's got the mating screw in the back. So I should just be able to put this in, and then I'll have to adjust the wheels, and hopefully it'll work. You should see. Alright, so that's in. So now I just have to adjust these guys. Alright, so I'm going to go adjust it and see if it works. Seems to be doing the trick. So, there we go. I have to put a handle on this yet. There's an old one that I had in here. Nice. So there it is. I thought it came out pretty well. So it's a lot more work than I thought. Of course, the videos always make it look a little easier. So a few mistakes here and there, but overall it went pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with it. Now that I got everything basically put together, I did find that I actually lubed up the screw. It was pretty dry. So after I lubed it, it really helped the operation of it. So now it's just touching my finger. So just kind of demonstrate how the parallel guide works. Get it out. Once you get it down in there, just touch it up, and then you bring this down. You put it in the hole that's closest to the leg and the inside, and then you can just snug her in. And you really don't give it a lot of force, because this thing it really has a lot of force on it. So if you pull too hard, you could eventually, I guess, break something, because you have a lot of torque on this guy. So that works pretty well. Then if you're just doing maybe just something really thin, you don't need anything in the parallel guide. You can just slide in there, snug it up, and you get yourself a pretty good clamp. So really handy for working on anything on the bench if you want to do any planing or something. So pretty happy with it. Overall, I'd say the project went pretty smooth. I did have a few hiccups along the way. specifically trying to make the. I think I wasted a lot of time trying to make the holders for the wheels. I tried to make them out of a piece of solid wood, and I ended up blowing it up on the router. So wasted a few hours doing that, but overall it went pretty smooth. I guess just take your time, and I really suggest if you're going to do it. I got the instructions off of the Benchcrafted website for this. It's very similar. It's not exactly like it. I just kind of use it as a guide and to get some ideas. So it's a really good reference to have if you're going to work in this. So if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section, or if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. So thanks for watching.